Hello my friends. Here is a base that I'm setting up, and this is going to hold a collection tray, and the collection tray will hold my worm bin. You can see the holes in the bottom. If this didn't have any holes, I wouldn't need the bottom tray. I would just drill a hole in the bottom, and underneath this is a dollar bucket from the Dollar Tree, and that will collect worm juice. Here's where the bucket is, so I'm going to drill a hole right here. This will allow the worm juice to drop into the bucket. If my worm bin didn't have so many holes, I could do one hole like this in the worm bin and not need the collection pan. Here I'm over at my neighbor's house, Terry, and we're doing a worm bin for him. And he has two drain holes here, and the platform is elevated, so this is going to work out perfect. So what I have here, we need to cover those holes. We're going to make a filter. So I'm going to take this wire I have here and fold it up, and we'll do one more fold maybe. No, this is good right here. No, this one we're doing one more fold right there. Okay, now I have some ground cloth or screen, but insect screen. We're going to wrap this, and this will block. We've got probably double what we needed. We're going to wrap this. This will block the soil and block the worms, and I'm pushing this over the hole. This is compost with some soil mixed and leaves, so that's covered. And this is the low side, that will be the drain. And you can see here it's elevated, and that allows him to put a bucket underneath the drain holes. Okay, now we're going to add a little bit more compost. We're going to add black cow and then the worms, and then cover it with burlap. And that is how simple this worm bed is. Okay, this is black cow, and I think you can get it at Lowe's or even Walmart. So this is manure compost, and the worms will be eating this. And then the other thing that we have is some soil. The worms need to have grit. So this is Florida soil, which is mostly sand.
Want more?
That should be plenty. And then the only other thing we can do this as we're adding our scraps is add some azomite, which will put all the trace minerals that your garden needs. Okay, now worms don't like light, so we're going to cover these up after we put the worms in, and we're going to cover them with burlap. So this bag has 250 worms. They come in this neat little bag, cloth bag. Okay, now the worms will lose about 70% of their bulk in transit, and you can see they're active. They're still okay. They arrived healthy. And they don't like sunlight, so they're going to make an exodus. You don't want to bury them. You just lay them on the surface. They will dig their way into the soil. And we're going to give this a good soaking. And they are kind of dehydrated, so this will drain, and we'll have a bucket underneath So any of the water that comes out will be a combination of worm juice and like compost tea. It'll be draining the nutrients from the soil and the compost that's in there. So that's probably more than enough water. Okay, now we need to put a collection bucket underneath and cover it with our tarp. Here is a collection bucket. Okay. Any excess will drain out, so we're okay. If this were plugged, you could drown your worms. They need to have oxygen. They breathe through their skin. And I can hear it dripping now. So, and then all this water that's dripping can be added to your plants, to your garden as a fertilizer. And then when this gets under full production, the worm juice will be concentrated, and you can mix that with water up to 10%. Okay, we just need our tarp now, our burlap. Okay, I'm back at my worm bed, and I need to do the same that we did at Terry's. I'm going to take this screen, fold it into a pad. This gives it some volume. And then I'm going to wrap it with this mosquito netting or window screen. This will block the dirt but leave the... Now I'm using compost. I don't have black cow. This compost comes from the city landfill. It won't be as rich as black cow, which is cow manure. If you have access to horse manure or cow manure, you could put a layer of that down first, and that will be good worm food. Chicken manure would be just too hot, so that would have to be well rotted, aged before you add it. This is pretty dry. I'm going to wet this before I put the worms in. This should already be loaded with microbes, and as the worms eat this and digest it, it will give you supercharged worm castings. Okay, now I do need some sandy soil. That'll go in next. And I'll take that right out of my garden. This is almost all sand. Florida sand. This will give grit to for the worms. And then the other thing I'll do, I'm going to add azomite. This is the azomite. Okay, it's kind of in granules. And I'm going to scatter this in here. Probably 3 or 4 cups is what I'm using. Okay, I'm going to mix this in with everything else. Okay, let me wet that and then add the worms. Okay, as soon as that drains or gets absorbed, then the worms will go in. Comes in this little cloth bag. The worms breathe through their skin, so they have to have some air. They have the worms in this peat, and this peat is moist. I don't see a worm in there. Okay, here they are. Here they come. There. And you scatter these on the surface. They don't like the sun, so that's disturbing them. It's in the evening, so it's later. And they will burrow. And plenty of food in there. A few days they'll get their, they'll be rehydrated. They lost up to 70% of their moisture. A few days they'll be right back to their good old selves, and I can start feeding them with table scraps. On top of this, I have this old burlap. This, you might be able to find it. This was free. It came from a nursery. So they get something in it, and just cut the bags open and discard the burlap. So this will also help control some of the moisture. I don't want to wet them too much. They need to have their oxygen. Okay, now in the past, I'll use this. It'll last quite a few months, but at some point the worms will start eating the burlap too, so it'll disappear. Now, to keep critters out, I have a sheet of plywood. Okay, it's showing some age there too. I have some holes drilled for ventilation, and it's good to go. And you can see my bucket here. It's not dripping because I didn't super saturate it, but you can add some water, possibly a little bit every day. Get some juice out of there every day and water your vegetables. It's all set, ready to go. Thanks for watching, my friends. Bye-bye.